Okay, so we need to complete the documentation first for these things, and then we will see when to use grid layout, H1, when to use grid layout, grid and flex layout. How do you choose it? Correct? Yeah. So can you tell me what is grid auto rows? What do you mean by grid auto rows? Grid template area? Just a minute. So grid auto rows is the property so grid auto rows is one of the property. Then grid template area is one of the property, and grid area is one of the property. So these two are related, right? So by means of this grid template area, we designate area for certain things. We designate area for certain things. So when you talk about grid template area, let us write it. So here we define just a minute. Yeah. So the grid template area, CSS property specifies named grid areas, establishing the cells in the grid and assigning them names, right? Those areas, remember that those areas are not associated with any particular grid item, but can be referenced from the grid placement properties. Now, what is the grid placement properties? Grid area. Grid area is one of the placement property, right? And what values it can have? What values it can have? A none. First value can be none. None. A grid container doesn't define any named area. Meaning of none is that. And the string, long big string, in this way. Can you see grid template area? Can you see this string? Quote. If you see start quote, end quote, start quote, end quote. So you can define the things like this. I'm getting background noise from your end. So here you can say a string which defines a space separated string. Let's write it. Space grid areas separated by space Okay, now there is something called as grid area. Which property? Grid area. So when you talk about the grid area, this is the placement property. Now what do you mean by placement property? A CSS shorthand property, CSS shorthand property within a grid by contributing line, span, just a minute, let's write it. A CSS shorthand property specifies a grid item's size, location within the grid by contributing a line, span or nothing to its grid placement, thereby specifying the edges of the grid area. Can you see this? 1, 2, 3. So A like this, A like this. So this thing is done by grid area. If you see, grid area A, grid area B, grid area C. Correct? Okay. Now there are a lot of things are available actually. We can name it, we can do a lot of things in the grid actually, but this is what you need to know as far as grid is concerned. So you can develop grid by adding a lot of other properties. So if you see here, so these many are the grid related properties, right? So whenever you understand the grid properly and whenever you use it, you may go with all other properties, but you can form the grid by means of number of ways. We have seen two ways, right? We have seen what? Two ways. So this grid template area and a normal grid. On the day 14, I think, day 14 or where? Here we have seen the normal grid, right? Okay. Okay. Now what we need to write values for the grid area. Values. So let's add values, and values can be, here you can say, values can be values just a minute. Values can be auto. One value auto is a keyword, right? Auto is a keyword. Auto is a keyword indicating that property contributing nothing to the grid items placement, indicating auto placement or the default span of 1. Span means what? How many cells it has been occupied, right? Then we can say custom intent. So another property, a custom intent, like a name, we have used this custom indent. Then if there is a named with if, just a minute, I will explain. We didn't use it actually. If there is a named line with the name custom indent hyphen start upon custom indent hyphen end, so you can do something like this also. So whenever you say grid item 1 upon 2, something like this, a upon 2, something like this, this also you can do. That's what they are talking about here, custom intent, right? So named grid areas automatically generate the implicit named lines of the form, right? Implicit named lines of the form. So by specifying, so if you do something like this, if you say A, we can say, you can use something like this, A hyphen B or A hyphen start, upon C hyphen end, something like this you can do. That's what they are telling about, right? Auto and name any name you can any name you can write. Okay, so remember that. So grid area, grid template area, and like this. Now grid auto rows, what do you mean by this grid auto rows? A CSS property specifies size of an implicitly created, see here, CSS property specifies the size of an implicitly created grid row track, or the pattern of the tracks. Grid row track or pattern of the track. If grid item is positioned into a row, right? If grid item is positioned into a row that has not explicitly sized, so in short, meaning of this is that it will create, in short, it will create the grid rows automatically, right? So size of the rows, the CSS property that sets the size of the rows in a grid when rows are implicitly created. Rows are implicitly means what? Automatically created, right? This is the CSS property, you can say. The CSS property that sets the size of a rows in a grid when the rows are created implicitly, when you haven't explicitly defined using grid template rows. Just a minute. If you here you can say it allows you to specify a size, a percentage, a value like auto for rows that are automatically generated to accommodate the grid items. Just a minute. Okay. So what happens? It allows you to specify a size, a percentage, or a value like auto for rows that are automatically generated to accommodate grid items that do not have the specific row placement. Hello? Specific row placement. It is not having specific row split. If automatically has been created, right? Which means that the implicitly they have been created, it will do things automatically. If you see over here, grid auto rows 100px, right? Grid auto rows 100px. So we have seen all these things. So CSS property that sets the size of the rows in a grid when the rows are created implicitly. That is when you haven't defined them using the grid template rows. You have not specified anywhere grid template rows, right? CSS property that sets size of the rows in the grid. See, do not forget this. Sets the size of the rows in the grid. In the bracket, we have said that when the size is not explicitly defined. Getting my point? Sets the size of the rows in the grid. It allows you to specify a size, a percentage value, a value like auto for the rows that are automatically generated to accommodate the grid items that do not have specific row placement. That do not have specific row placement. For example, we have taken this. For example, you can use a grid auto rows 100px to set the height of the rows automatically to the 100 pixel. Correct? So here we have decided the values, or we have discussed the values, sorry. Values. Here you can say number auto. Correct? Number. So here we already have written allows you to specify the size, percentage auto, percentage a pixel, percentage, etc., or a value like auto, etc., or a value like auto. Okay. Okay, do you have any question? So I will embed this link as well about the grid layout. Just a minute. CSS3 grid layout. I will add, you may refer. So here we can say call out. You may refer official link. For more understanding purpose. Correct? Okay. Now, a question, when to use the grid and when to use the, just a minute, just a minute. Okay. So when to use a grid, when to use a flex. So when you talk about grid and flex, both are the things which arrange your elements. Yes or no? They arrange your elements. So one says that I will arrange the elements in a one-dimensional system. Another says that I will arrange the elements in two-dimensional system, right? So choosing between, you can say, so choosing between CSS grid and the flexbox depends on the specific layout requirements of your design. Each layout has its own strengths, right? And choice will depend on how you want to arrange and control the elements on your web page. Each layout system has its strengths, and choice will depend on how you want to arrange and control the elements on your web page. So here we can say H2 grid layout, and H2, here you can say flexbox or flex layout. So when you talk about the grid layout, you choose, remember that you choose grid when you need to create the complex two-dimensional layout with both rows and columns. You need to create the complex two-dimensional layouts with both rows and columns. You have defined the grid structure. Remember that you have defined grid structure and want to align the elements within the specific rows and the columns. You have defined the grid structure and want to align elements within the specific rows and the column. Your layout requires, items of the different sizes to be placed in a more organized grid-like structure. Your layout requires items of the different sizes to be placed in a more organized grid-like structure. You need to create the layout. Where items can span the multiple rows or the columns. You need to create the layouts where items can span multiple rows or columns. You are designing larger layout structures like web page sections with the different arrangements. You need to control both horizontal and the vertical alignment easily. When you will go for the grid layout, when you need to create the complex two-dimensional layouts with both rows and columns, you have defined the grid structure and want to align elements within the specific rows and the columns. I want to align input boxes of the third and fourth rows only. You need a grid at that time. Your layout requires items of the different sizes to be placed in a more organized grid-like structure. Your layout requires items of the different sizes. To be organized in a grid-like structure. You need to create the layouts where items can span multiple rows or the columns. Grid areas they are talking about. You are designing the larger layout structures like web page sections with the different arrangement. Means in your web page, one web page, there are different kind of structuring is there. Web page is same, but on the left corner you need some different arrangement. On the center you need some different arrangement. On the right you need some different arrangement, like that. You need to control both horizontal and the vertical alignments of the items. Okay. Now when you will use a flex bar, you need a one-dimensional layout. You need what? A one-dimensional layout, along either horizontal or the vertical axis, row or a column at a time. Row or a column at a time. You getting my point? When you need a structuring, right? Row or a column at a time, not a both. You want to distribute the items. See here. You want to distribute the items evenly along with the main axis, horizontally or vertically, and handle their alignment. You want to distribute items along with the main axis, either horizontally or vertically, and handle their alignment. You are dealing with, what you can say, when you are dealing with single row or a column of the items that need to adjust their sizes based on content or available space. You are dealing with single row or column of the items. You are dealing with single row or column of the items that need to adjust their sizes based on the content or available space. Right? A single row or a column. In a single row or column, you need to do something at a time. You will go with the flex box. You want to reorder the items for the different screen sizes or the responsive web designs. Well, this can be point in a grid layout also. Grid and flex both provide support to the responsiveness. You want to reorder the items for different screen sizes or the responsive designs. Both grid and flex does that thing. You need the flexible layout. You need a flexible layout for navigation menus, simple content list, or aligning items within the container. For navigation menus, simple content list, or aligning the items with container. You want to create the equal height columns within the row layout. Few examples. You want to create the equal heighted columns. All the columns would be having same height within the row layout. In many cases, here you can say, in many cases, you may find that combining both CSS, combining the both. In many cases, you may find combining both CSS layout and the Flexbox can provide a powerful solution for various layout changes. For example, you can use, so here you can say, for example, you can use a CSS grid for creating the major sections of your layout and Flexbox within those sections to fine tune the arrangement of the items. Right? Ultimately, here you can say, ultimately, the choice between CSS grid layout and the Flexbox depends on the complexity of your layout and the design goals. Familiarizing yourself with both the layouts, familiarizing yourself with both the layout systems will enable you to select the most appropriate one for each specific part of your web design. See here. Right? So what you will choose, most of the cases, right? You may, if you are developing a complex design, you might want to choose both. You may combine both. Correct? Am I audible? Yes, sir. So you might want to combine the both in most of the cases. Now let's try to create something. Let's go to the day 16. Let's try to create something by combining both, say, index.html, or let's have a bank KYC form. A bank KYC form. Just a minute. Let us see, do we get any form or not? Let's try to find a complex form. I'm just searching form on the internet, or bank account opening form. I will paste it. Yeah, can you see bank account opening form? So logo of the company, then the address, this line bank account opening form, then this line horizontal line account information. See, one section account information. Inside that there is a personal information. And can you see how text box are aligned? Joint owner information, this line, I agree. Let's try to build this form. Let's try to build this form. You got the idea, right? What exactly we need to do, or there are other forms are also available. Just a minute. This is the form. You can see that this is the form. We need to build this form. So can we download it somewhere? Can we download the PDF? Okay, no, but I think you got the idea. What exactly needs to be done? I think you got the clear idea, right? So how to do vertical lines? Vertical lines, border, vertical border. So there is a border left, right? If you add border left to the multiple cells, it becomes vertical line. Other ways also are there, but we need to develop this form. Remember that. I don't know this link will be there or not, but I will add just a case study. We can say here case study H, or say here we can say case study form, sorry, page, case study. Case study. We need to develop bank account opening form. Okay, which will have layout, like the link like available in link. I don't know by, so this link is available for how many days, I really don't know, but in the video I have shown you the form, logo, address, title, then subsections, account information, account type, then horizontal line, personal information, like this. So how do you build this form? That is the question. Let's try it. This style.css, index.html, html5 here, and bank opening form. So exactly we cannot build, we will just try to have the, we can have just try to have the structure is important. Can you imagine how you will build this? Can you imagine how do you build this? Link css style.css. So in the main we will have a form tag. So whenever there is a form, we can use which tag? Form tag. So this is the form. So how do you design it? How do you design it? So this is the header. Then account type, currency type. What is this exactly? How do you add this? The horizontal line. And can you see here 3 columns are there? Here 2 columns are there. Here 1 column is there. Again here 2 columns are there. Again here 2 columns are there. Here are also 2 columns. In the 1 column, there are these boxes. In second column, title and the drop down, and something like this. Joint owner information, 3 columns, 2 columns, 1 column, 1 column. How to design this? How to design this? That is the question, right? You might develop it by means of the flex layout. That is okay. You might want to combine both grid and this. That is also okay. Getting my point? Now, how do you start? That is my first question. So that is very important. If you want to develop this, how do you exactly start? Where do you start? That is the first point. So if you see, this is the logo and information. Let's try to build something. Okay. This is the form we have. Now what I wanted to do, I might go a flex layout for this. I might use a flex layout over here. Then over here flex layout. Then I might use, what you can say, I might use flex layout here, and I might choose to use a grid layout for this section. Okay, let's try it. We can say form, inside form, first we can have one section. Into the section we can have one image tag, and here we can have one div. Here we can have one div, and into that div there is a strong tag, and into that we can say ABC Bank, we can say ABC Bank, and inside that we can have some address, say 123 DD Street, 123 DD Street, PQR building, PQR building, something like this. First open the preview. Okay, ABC Bank. Instead of the paragraph, let's try to remove it. Okay, so this image, let's have some logo downloaded. Let's have some logo downloaded. Or instead of image, let's have H3 ABC Bank. ABC Bank or H2 ABC Bank. And I want this to be placed at left, this to be placed at right. So here inside a span, just wrap it something into the tag. Okay, so here I want this to be written over here left and something to be at the right. How do you do that? So first to the main, first HTML body, I can say 9 width 90 VW, height 90 VH. Then main 100%, sorry, width 100%, height 100%, and dot container, right? So to the container also width 100% and height 100% and margin left 16 pixel, margin right 16 pixel, margin top 8 pixel, and here we can say container, class container. A little margin have been added. Now to this section we can say dot form header, display flex, display flex. Just add class form header, display flex, and the form header. Let's assign width 100% and space justify content space between. One went here and another over here. Align items center. Okay, now either you convert it to the paragraph, so automatically it will happen like this. There is a ABC Bank, let's add the border. Okay, let's add the border, 1 pixel, solid border. Now we can say header address dot header address. So presently we are not using any third party library, remember that, just CSS3 we are using. Header address display flex direction column, and we may apply class header address, header address a border 1px solid red. Okay, and the paragraph is killing your content, so don't use a paragraph. Paragraph is having some, yeah, now see ABC and something like this. Now if you want to, so height of this is this much, even this class header is not required. Well, the class header is required. Why? Because if you remove the class header, see what happens. If you remove the class header, your h3 and the span would be in a one line. If you add a div over here, see, still it will work in the same fashion. But it is always good to have, a flex over here. That's why I generally add it. Class header address. Okay, so this ABC bank and ABC bank, and what you can say, this address. So first section over here has been done. Now we need to add h1. Below this we need to add h1. And bank opening form. So is it at center? No. Bank opening form. And how ours is looking? Bank opening form. Yeah, bank account opening form. And you can add HR, horizontal rule. Go here, comment out the border, bank account opening form, like this. Bank account opening form. If you want to increase font, you can increase the font of this. Now what? So account information, account type, and the currency type. How do you do this? Account information, h2 we need to have. So this would be one section. Form header. Okay. Section. So I'm keeping this in one section. just format the document. So one thing in one section. Okay, simply added this into the section form header. Then another section. This section for this account information. H2 account information, and this form can be added into the account information. Well, there should be one HR after the account information, this one. Account information, this HR. Well, we can use the fonts also over here. Then can you see account type, currency type, and then there is a drop down, account type, currency type. So label, we can say input type, input type, okay, we need to have drop down. Can you tell me the tag? How do you create the drop down? Can you tell me tag? Select tag. Select. We can give some ID. And ID here we can say what is the first? Account type. AC type, for AC type. If you see here, this label is for which tag? This label is for this ID. You are saying like this. Account type. Then option tag. Option, we can say current, savings, or account type current saving. Pension, like that. Save it. Account information, can you see current and this thing? But if you see below that, there is a label, account type. Account type. So again, we can add this in one span, or you can use div as well. Div. Am I audible? So just reformat the document. Format the document. One more div we need to have here. Account type, currency type. Currency type. USD, INR, and pounds. And what pounds? Can you see account type? But if you see here, at the top there is account type, and below there is a options. So how do you do that? How do you do that? At the top there is a label, and below that there is an actual option tag. Give me a minute, I'll be back. Yeah, how do you do that? Say that again.
We can use label.
We can use what?
Label.
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 So label already have been used. Then tell me. Tell me how to do that. Hello. How to do that?
Headline. H1. H1. H2.
H1, H2, H3. So
Uh,
to this div we need a flex box again. So you need to tell me these things. We need a flex box. Actually, this is a flex box, right? With the column. So we can say account info, ACC info, column 1. This is the ACC info column 1. So let's go here. Class ACC info column 1. And this is ACC info column 2. And this is what? ACC info column 2. So ACC info column 1. And see, so do you need 2 classes or do you need 1 class? Only 1 class, right? You don't require these 2 classes. So be very sure about this. ACC info COL, ACC info COL, ACC info COL. Display flex here. Display flex here. Display flex. And flex direction column. That's it. Go here, refresh it. Can you see what happened? Account type. It has taken the full width. So here we can say, flex 1, 1, 50%. Or just apply width 50%. Width 50%. Okay, then display direction we don't require actually. What is happening? Oh, so this is the form. So to outer also we need to have 1 class, right? So we are just thinking about, so display direction is required here. Display direction, display, flex direction column. So this is for these 2 things, and that is working correctly. Now dot ACC info form display, again this will be flex. Now class we need to apply ACC info form. Can you see this? ACC info form. And if you remove this width 50%,
we can use distance.
yeah, and we can use the space around, justify content, space around. Still it is looking bad. Space between. Okay, just try to increase the width, say 30%, like this. Correct. See, everywhere I have used the flex, and here also justify content, space between. Okay, what is the width? What is, you can give little height also, say 100 pixel, and then it will work. 100 pixel is 50 pixel. Yeah, height 50 pixel, right? So this horizontal rule, so you asked me how to create the vertical line, correct? So instead of this, I will just remove this horizontal line, and here I will create the class and header. We can say header BRD BTM border bottom header. Let's create this class. Let's create the class, and border bottom 1px solid ghost white. Refresh it. Can you see there is a very thin border is there? Gray, it's way higher gray. You can search on the internet also. Grain bro. Can you see? Bottom border. Correct? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Account information, and like this. And you can add little padding bottom, say 8 pixel. So there is a little gap between border and account information. Okay. Now what is next? Personal information. So how many rows are there to the personal information? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a 7, 8 rows, then 9, 10. 10 rows are there, and each row is having different width and height. Now you tell me, how do you achieve this? Your voice is echoing. In a grid layout, how do you make sure that every row would be having a different columns? Using grid template area, correct. Grid template area is a one option. So I told you, in a grid you can use a lot of other things. Okay, let's go here. Now see, your form sections would be same. If you see here, You need to copy this section. I'm just copying this and pasting it here. So this form would be having just different thing. I'm removing this class, and here we can say personal information. Personal information. Can you see? Personal information. Is there any HR? Yeah, after the account information, there is a HR. After account information. So this HR we will take outside. After every section, there is a HR. Okay. After every session, there is a HR. Let's give little. So this section is there. Fine. I will not polish the thing, but this is the HR. Or let's create good section, one class called as dot good section. Margin bottom 8 pixel. You can apply the class good section. Margin bottom. Account information. Good section. Say that again.
We can be used already margin.
I didn't understand what you mean to say.
Already we use margin for account information in the container.
So you mean to say we have already used margin for account information?
We can use in container. Use in container.
No, but why this margin is not getting applied? 880px. Yeah, it is getting applied actually. Say 16 pixel. Okay, 16 pixel. Value was too short, so it was not getting identified. Personal information. So this is the personal information. Let's get the text. Let's get the text. Now how do you add the text? Personal information, paragraph, and italic. Go here. Personal information. Is it like this? No. After personal information, can you see the personal information here? And after personal information, name is there. Then 3 columns. Now see here you need to have a grid, right? So here we can have dot personal info form display grid. Personal info form. Class, some buzzing noise is coming from your end. Yeah, personal info form. personal info form. Personal info form, display grid. Then here we can add grid template columns. So by default, 3 columns we would be needing. Repeat, 3 columns of one fractional unit, FR. Right, and the gap we can say 16 pixels. Okay. Hello. How many rows we have? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this whole is one row, or we can understand like this: 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's have 8 rows in the beginning. So div 8 times. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now here we can say dot row 1, dot row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, 7, and 8. Now in the first row there are 3 columns. In the first row there are 3 columns. Again, grid template columns over here. Repeat 3 times 1 FR. Or 1 FR. Here 2 columns. Here what? 2 columns. 2 of 1 FR. In the 1 column, grid template column 1 column. Similarly, 5th row would be also having 1 column. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6th row would be having 2 columns. 6th row would be having 2 columns. 7th row would be having 2 columns. So you can use grid template area also, right? And this is also having 2 columns. How many rows? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, one would be having 3 columns. See, mistake. 1 would be having 3 columns. 2 would be having 2 columns. So everything needs to be shifted. 8 also would be having 2 columns, right? 8 also would be having 2 columns. So my next question is that how do you make this name at the top and this below? How do you add this name at the top? Label. But then, so now if you add three input boxes, input type text, input type text, 1, 2, 3. Now go here, refresh it. Can you see 3 columns automatically? Now inside that 2 columns, 1, 2, 2 columns. Here we can say class, row 1, class, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7, class, row 8. Just refresh it. Account information, personal info form, personal info form, personal info form, info form. Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Where is the mistake? Grid template columns. So personal info, this is the display grid, personal info form. This is the display grid. Row 1, 1FR. Okay, go here, refresh it. And can you see there is a layout? It's a grid. One FR, one FR, one FR. Can you see that has happened? One FR, one FR, one FR. Default 3 columns. That has been done. Now row 1, just a minute. Let's try to remove these inputs. Okay, I got it, what's happening. Row 1, 3FR. Just try to. Okay, what I will do, I will write the code and upload it on the Git. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. I know what's happening, but I need little time. Fine? And I will upload half of the code. Remaining you will complete as a homework.
In a particular info form,
Uh-huh.
we can create a grid template column.
Grid template column would be easy. That is most simplest way of creating grid template column. But I wanted to show you in other way also. Okay? Yeah. So I'll do that and upload the code onto the Git. Fine?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm disconnecting.